Hey, what is up everyone? Kilryan here bringing you another video, and this one is actually going to be a Berserker Glyph guide. I know I said I was going to bring you one here on an earlier video, so I decided, you know what, now that the Champion Skyrim 3v3 tournament is over, I think a lot of people are going to be rolling Berserkers because there was a lot of quality play there. And so now it's Flavor of the Month. Better get some Glyph guides out there and whatnot for everybody. For those of you who don't know what Glyphs are basically the talent system of TERA, which allows you to specialize and improve certain skills in certain ways. If you are a leveling Berserker, so there are several key abilities in which you want to have focus on that you're typically going to maintain points into. Thunderstrike, Flatten, Axe Block, Staggering Strike, Cyclone, and then there are an Evasive Smash. Those are the kind of go-tos that you're going to be seeing a lot of, but there are variations in each one according to what you want to do, especially in PvP, if you're going to be doing a lot of AoE cleaving, if you're going to be doing a lot of focus, single targeting, things like that, and that's what I want to address here in this guide for everyone. First up, I want to talk about leveling, because a lot of people are going to be wondering, what is the best way to go about leveling a Berserker? And that is, you're going to see heavy emphasis pretty much in Cyclone. You're going to want to just run with the Hastened Cyclone and Empowered Cyclone throughout the entire time. You're not actually going to have this carving, but essentially you're going to be AoE cleaving a lot of stuff, and Cyclone's going to be the thing that you do it with. Outside of that, I would say it's not bad to glyph your Flatten for both the increased attack speed and skill damage. You will be using that fairly actively since it is kind of a in-between skill and whatnot. And then lastly, your Thunderstrike. Thunderstrike is going to probably be your most utilized skill out of everything. It's 7 points while leveling to have Slick Thunderstrike. It's not bad though. It's not a bad choice because it definitely makes the class feel a little bit better while leveling, especially since you're able to move around a lot more rather than being restricted on your movement while charging a Thunderstrike. And then Sanative Thunderstrike for sure, decreases HP consumption by 50%. So those are the things. You essentially just want to glyph damage and speed. That's pretty much what you want to be doing while leveling. And even consider having like HP reduction cost on Unchained Anger, since you do have a lot of mana issues. But I know a lot of people aren't here for the leveling idea of what Berserker Glyphs are. So I'm going to be talking about what advanced glyphs you should get for both PvE and PvP, as well as my standard setups, and what variations you can have along with that. So, for those of you who don't know, or haven't hit level 60, there are advanced glyphs, which I'll post a link to here for my advanced glyph guide and whatnot, where you go get those and how you go about getting those. But you'll find them in Alamentia in the Arcane Symposium, as well as Kaiator in the Forge Heart. So that's where you're going to be finding these. But this is specifically for Berserkers. So, we're going to take a look here at what glyphs are available in Alamentia. Let's see melee talent right here under Berserker. So, here's where you get the double crit chance on Evasive Smash, which is really, really huge in PvP and can be utilized in PvE as well. Reduced cost on Mind Spark, not bad at all. Glyph of the Swift for Thunderstrike is necessary. Absolutely necessary. Both PvE and PvP Berserker. If you're looking to get a glyph with gold talents, this is going to be the first one that you're going to want to have. 25% faster charging on your Thunderstrike. Next up would be the Staggering Strike chance to reset the cooldown, 35% chance. This can be utilized in both PvE and PvP if paired with the Glyph of Blazing from Staggering Strike. Alright, so here we go. First up, guys, I'm going to give you a look at what my typical build would be for PvE. So for PvE, this is my current setup, and I'll go briefly over it. Everything into Thunderstrike. everything. Double crit chance. You need this. Eliminates the slow restriction or movement restriction from Thunderstrike, so you can actually weave in and out and avoid stuff properly while charging up. Sanative Thunderstrike, 50% HP reduce cost when overcharging is actually pretty huge. It takes a lot of stress off of your healers. 25% charging speed, necessary, needed. You should never have a spec without this. Next up, I just have 25% damage on flat, or casting speed on flatten. You could actually run with the skilled damage on it, but I personally just like to increase the attack speed because flatten does have kind of a poor animation lock. So if you're in a very fast-paced fight in which you have to like be moving out a lot of stuff and you weave a flatten in there, you don't want to be locked down. Then I have the Blazing Staggering Strike and the Persistent Staggering Strike. The only reason why I have the Persistent Staggering Strike is for the Blazing Staggering Strike. What this does is, upon using Staggering Strike, you're actually going to be getting 30% faster charging speed, 30% attack speed on your next Thunderstrike, which is huge. So you can instantly, here I'll give you a display of that. So here's a normal charge, boom, fully overcharged. Now here's a Staggering Strike. Here's a Staggering Strike one. Boom. Fully overcharged. You can clearly see the difference in speed, and that's the reason why I like to run the reset so I can speed up my Thunderstrikes more and more and more in between skills and whatnot. Next up, you want to glyph everything in Cyclone. This is the 12% overcharge damage. A lot of people don't think that this is very good, but it is an immense amount of damage. Cyclone is actually your highest damaging skill if everything like crits, and it's your most consistent damage skill because you're going to be hitting 6 times. You're much more likely to crit across those, and if you do, and so it makes it a lot more consistent comparing to overcharging one ability and hoping for it to crit. So 25% charging speed, 12% overcharge damage, and double crit chance. Next up, running with the Empowered Vampiric Blow, you want to weave it. Vampiric Blow, of course, is an instant cast anytime you overcharge Cyclone or Thunderstrike. So basically, you release a fully charged Thunderstrike and then you use Vampiric Strike right after that, which just makes it a good burst damage combo. What this is, PvE is pure damage. You're not going to really be needing, if you're learning a fight and whatnot, you could probably take the damage out of Vampiric Strike and put it into Dash, reduce cooldown, to where you don't have to rely nearly as much. You don't have to rely nearly as much on knowing the fight, and so you'll have a constant speed buff, which is really good for Berserkers since we don't have a lot of movability. Or you could also take off this Swift Flatten and end up putting that right here in the Mind Sparked Axe block as well, which if you're blocking a lot of things and you're having mana issues, that's definitely really helpful. And then lastly, just to finish this all off, I go with the double crit chance on Evasive Smash. I don't have 6 points, otherwise I would put 25% damage on Evasive Smash. I think this is just a really good evasive ability, which allows you to still get a hit off, and so doubling the crit chance is good, because unless you crit, you're pretty much not dealing damage. So this is my standard combination. Everything in Thunderstrike, you can either go attack speed or damage on Flatten. Blazing Staggering Strike and Persistent Staggering Strike. And I'll post links, actually, to all of these down in the description below. Everything in Cyclone, Empowered Vampiric Blow, and lastly, double crit chance. So PvE is fairly standard. A lot of people are going to be playing with a very typical PvE glyph setup for every single class, because PvE it's all about min-maxing damage, and you don't have to worry nearly as much about utility. But utility is where it becomes really fun. And the only time that you'll see that on behalf of Berserker is in PvP. And this is probably the part that a lot of you are wondering a lot more about. PvP, there are a lot of different variations for the Berserker, actually. And this is my current setup. This is my current setup. running everything in Thunderstrike, everything in Flatten, 25% reduced cooldown on dash, so you're constantly able to move around the battlefield. 30 the Blazing Staggering Strike, so you can perpetuate your KD chains and get more overcharged. This is a necessity in PvP. Mind Spark Dax Block, you have to have this because you have enough mana issues as it is. You need something to help you get a little bit of mana, especially if you're getting sat on. Next up, just the 25% charging speed on Cyclone is really, really good. For the cost of only 3 with the improved glyph, that's a really cheap glyph for a really strong effect, being 25% faster charging. And Cyclone is an ability that you use in PvP semi-often. Okay, and here's the complete outlier for what I'm running right now, which is the Lingering Flurry of Blows. The only reason why I'm using this, guys, is because I have 7.2% cooldown reduction on my axe. What that does is essentially I can have Flurry of Blows up for an extended period of time, so I'm able to really charge up fast, really attack fast throughout the fight for extended periods of time, and that's the only reason why I'm using this currently. And then I tried playing without Empowered Evasive Smash. I tried, which is 25% damage on that, as well as the double crit chance, but it doesn't work, in my opinion. If you are a Berserker who is actively using Evasive Smash, because it is your hardest hitting single ability, which is essentially your sniping skill, you're going to be charging up evasive rolling and evasive smashing into people for insane amounts of damage. And you need this 25% damage, in my opinion, as a Berserker. But this is just what I'm currently running. I want to talk about a couple of other valid glyphs throughout the tree. All of these are necessity. Both the Axe Block, Mind Spark, as well as everything in Thunderstrike is an absolute necessity. It's arguable that you can take off the damage and Flatten. However, I feel that Berserkers are very reliant on KD chains, and I think that these two are extremely strong for their cost of only 3. 3 each. So 6 total points for 25% speed on Flatten and 25% damage on Flatten. Next up, talking about Energetic Dash. Energetic Dash is 25% less cooldown on your dash. So basically, with it being a 25-second cooldown, or I believe it's actually a 28-second cooldown. Okay, no, so it is a 25-second cooldown. Having this 25% reduction is pretty important. A 6.2 seconds off of that is pretty insane because it is a 15-second lasting buff. So you're going to have 3-second downtime in which you do not have dash active. So it's definitely really good to have, but not absolutely necessary. If you find yourself able to stick on targets well, you do not need dash. And especially if you're utilizing something like a movement speed crux, a swift crux, over a carving or something along those lines. It is possible for you to run with that energetic dash. For Staggering Strike, a lot of these aren't really that valid. The only two that, in my opinion, that are valid are the Persistent Staggering Strike and the Blazing Staggering Strike. Blazing, I feel, is pretty staple. I do know some Berserkers who run without it, and they just run the Persistent Staggering Strike. However, what Blazing Staggering Strike does, in essence, for PvP, is it allows you to overcharge your ability a little bit more when you're putting people into a KD chain following your Staggering Strike Flatten. Let's see. I don't believe any of these are really worth mentioning. I've seen people utilize Mocking Shout 50% faster casting speed. For 5 points, it's not worth it. It helps in duels, possibly, against like Slayers and Warriors, where they're staggering you a lot and you're having a hard time casting it. But that's the only real situation that I would say that that's valid. I don't believe either of these are truly good at all for PvP due to their cost with the Fire Rage and whatnot. Triumphant Shout has a couple of things, or one ability, or one glyph that is valid to talk about, though. Grounded Triumphant Shout is a 12-second 16 endurance increase. 16 is a shit ton. a shit ton. This is a huge defensive steroid, and you don't need to be using Triumphant Shout all the time. It doesn't give you that much mana back. It just helps stop the decay of mana. So in this situation, you can save your Triumphant Shout for only 3 points for a huge defensive boost, which I think is very valid. Very, very valid. And so if you can mix this into a Glyph build, go for it. Everything in Cyclone has validity, especially if you're doing a lot of AoEing in guild versus guilds or possibly battlegrounds. You can run with overcharge damage on Cyclone or the double crit chance. You really have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice to get those, though. And when I say sacrifice, it means you need to take out probably Empowered Evasive Smash. You can take out your Energetic Dash. You can sacrifice... I've seen people sacrifice the Staggering Strike glyphs for it, which this is probably the most likely thing to trade them for, is your Staggering Strikes, for a lot more emphasis on heavy AoE with Cyclone. Next up is the Empowered Leaping Strike. The reset cooldown as well as the speed casting on Lethal Strike is not worth it. And Leaping Strike, if I said Lethal Strike earlier. So Leaping Strike is definitely a very good skill. Originally, I did not use it. I thought it was a terrible skill due to the animation lock. But noticing how it weaves at the end of a KD chain, if you cannot KD that target, or if they're very low, this is a finishing skill. And if you're... for a long time, I was playing with this build right here. This exact setup that I'm running, except instead of the Flurry of Blows lingering, I was using 25% damage on Leaping Strike. You can get some really solid hits with this. It is 5 points, so it is a little bit pricey, but it's definitely worth it if you're finishing often with those Leaping Strikes. Very quick, good burst of damage. Next up, in Unchained Anger, the only thing that I would say possibly is valid here is the Raging Unchained Anger, but I'm not a fan of RNG necessarily, so 25% chance to activate Flurry of Blows 1 is pretty strong because you're essentially spamming Unchained Anger almost on cooldown a lot of the time, but it's still RNG, and if you're not getting that, it's 5 points, which could have gotten to a much more consistent skill. Empowered Vampiric Blow is perfectly fine to use, especially for those heavy combo hits where you're just fully overcharged Thunder Strike into a Vamp Strike. It does a lot of burst damage. I would say it's good for duels. It does not increase the healing of Vampiric Blow, but I think it does a good bit of damage in the situation in which you will be using, just looking for a really hard hit followed up by another partially hard hit. I've heard Flurry of Blows, the only time you really want to be using this, guys, is if, like, this is a very experimental and very high-end, like, unique play style. Like, you really have to understand the Berserker class and know how to, like, dodge dispels and stuff like that if you are running this kind of glyph. But while Flurry of Blows is active, which is that 20% charging and attack speed stem, it's pretty strong. Lethal Strike, the 25% damage increase is not worth it at all, in my opinion, as well as the slowed movement restriction costing 6 points for Lethal Strike. If this was like a 2 or 3 point glyph, it might be worth it, but it's 6 points and it is huge. No one really uses Lethal Strike as a damage skill. It is an interrupt because it does have a stagger. Only a couple more things to go over, guys. Tenacity has 2 glyphs that I would say are valid at looking at. Energetic Tenacity, which is a 20% reduced cooldown, so that gives you 6 seconds off of a 30-second cooldown. Pretty huge for only 3 points. As well as it being your only way to make you immune to stun effects for 5 seconds. So this is definitely worth it for 3 points. You could sacrifice, I would say, Flatten in this kind of situation, or working around the Lingering Blows, or even possibly the Empowered Evasive Smash. So, 20% reduced cooldown there, and then if you're having a lot of mana issues, Spirited Tenacity is pretty nice. 50% chance. I know I said I don't really like RNG, but this is such a high chance that you're likely to see the benefit of it, especially with how often you're using Tenacity throughout fights, and how often Berserkers are having mana issues. 50% chance to regenerate 6% of your total MP every second. This lasts for 5 seconds, so it's a 30% chance, or a 30% MP regen over 5 seconds, which is huge. It is a ton of mana, and it is very helpful if you get it to proc. Under Inescapable Doom, the only thing that I would say that's valid really in here is the increased effect duration of by 30%. This is very situational, much like the lingering and Flurry of Blows against Mystics. And if you're playing with a high assassination team, like a warrior or something in 3 versus 3, and what Inescapable Doom does is it actually stops Mystics and certain classes from using their evasive and getaway skills. So increasing the duration of the effect duration on players from, I think it's 5 seconds up to 8 or 9 seconds is pretty huge. It's definitely noticeable. But like I said, it is very situational. Lastly, if you are that hard-hitting Berserker, guys, you want to glyph both into Evasive Smash. Evasive Smash, giving 25% damage on your hardest-hitting skill, is absolutely insane. This is going to be your one-shot ability if you are looking for that kind of playstyle. And then double crit chance. The more you crit, the more often you're going to be applying more pressure and landing kills. So it's a pretty straightforward. These are a little bit expensive. They are definitely a slightly expensive skill set, being 10 points for both of these. I have played, essentially Carving Evasive Smash is a filler, and I've played without glyphing Evasive Smash, freeing up a lot of points, which, at this point I'd probably do Empowered Leaping Strike, and I'd probably do Persistence on that. But what that would do is it would kill a lot of my bursting capability. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully I basically overviewed what you want to be looking for in terms of Berserker Glyphs and whatnot. I know I didn't run around and show you some awesome footage or whatnot, but hopefully with this kind of information, a lot of people are going to be rolling Berserkers now, and this is my personal playstyle. Don't be afraid to ask other Berserkers what their playstyle is and what their glyph setups is. This is just my perspective and what is valid in my opinion. So don't be afraid to ask other Berserkers and whatnot what they think is good. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did and you found it informational, please make sure to like it. Comment down below if you want to see some more Berserker-esque videos, because that is the class that I know best. And yeah, don't forget to check out my other videos, as well as I got some power leveling, I got some gold making, everything like that. So just check everything on my channel and whatnot. I also sometimes stream on twitch.tv/Kilryan, so make sure to follow me over there as well. And anytime you want to be updated, I start streaming or upload a YouTube video, you can always follow me on my Twitter @Kilryan as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Catch y'all next time.